Guess we're live.
I think so. Good to see you, John. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
It's been funny weather here. Like, went from 50 degrees on Sunday, I think, to like 18 degrees on Tuesday. And then we had snow and ice, and it takes them a while to like salt some of the roads or sand some of the roads here.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sort of driving down these roads and you realize I'm just driving on ice.
Oh,
So,
that's not so
but
good.
thankfully there are no hills, so you
Well,
don't go
it's still.
sliding. Yeah. Um,
So I hope
it's
you don't have to
okay.
do too much driving then today.
Well, I actually have to I'm having lunch with a colleague up in
Oh,
Evanston, so
oh,
but I think the snow is okay. It's the ice that's a problem, and
yeah, yeah.
I think it's supposed to stop before I have to leave. So we'll see. It doesn't really bother me. When you learned it a lot, drive in New Hampshire,
That's
it's
true.
really not a problem.
Yeah.
So it's the other drivers, of course, that
You're on the
I
road
was
with other
concerned
people.
about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they say,
So
you got to keep your eyes open and investigating the world
yes.
around you while you're.
Good segue, Doug. Good segue
Thank
to our
you.
topic today, investigation. And I looked back, and I think the last time we touched on this in any major way was when we talked about the first, well, actually, we talked about the second, third, and fourth factors of enlightenment,
Mm.
I believe. So it was investigation, energy, and joy, which, and I think investigation is always an important topic. I remember doing a whole series. I did a class at New York Insight just on investigation like
I think so.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, because many people don't really understand, or they misunderstand what it actually is implying and
Mm.
suggesting, and
Ah,
how
okay.
is it actually an awakening factor.
Uh-huh. So how
Um,
do they misunderstand it?
well, I think people hear the word and they think they're thinking more of like analytical investigation,
Right. Mm-hmm.
conceptual investigation,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's really not that,
Yeah, or not
in that
primarily
way.
anyway. Yeah.
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 I mean, we're not looking at why we're having a particular experience, at least in the sort of psychological sense. Um, Although that may play into it at times, but really the conditions from which the particular experience arises, um, karmic conditions from which they arise, but also for me anyway, and I think for most, well, not just for me. I mean, as I've begun to to play with it more, it's really just this kind of process of opening to the moment to moment unfolding of experience as it's arising in my formal practice, for
Mm.
sure. Um, and and uh, I may have talked about this even in the last couple of weeks, because this Chan teacher I was with, Guagu, who um, was a wonderful teacher, uh, was referring to this quality of wonderment.
Mm.
So it's like as the mind settles, as we wake up to the continual unfolding of experience, it's like, oh, and of course, at times that what we're waking up to is not necessarily pleasant.
Mm.
I mean, whether it's a physical sensation or a difficult emotion. But when we really start to sort of investigate it from the point of view of, um, let's just say the three qualities of existence of dukkha and excuse me, impermanence and non-self, then it's like, oh yeah, there's this experience I'm having right now, and it's here and now it's not, or
Mm-hmm.
this feeling I'm having right now, it's here and now it's not, and so we bring a kind of, for me, it's like an excited waking up. It's like it's like an eye-opening experience, even though our eyes aren't necessarily open. But if I experience every moment as a surprise, in a sense, then it makes sense that the next awakening factor would be energy. Because I find myself being energized by that experience. Um, and a few weeks ago, and I recommend, actually last week, Ezra Klein, who's got, I think, one of the top podcasts, um, he'll never compete with us, of course, but no, he's he had Stephen Batchelor on.
Right.
Yeah, and Stephen was talking about this practice. I remember him talking about years ago of this question. What is it? What is this? What is this?
Hmm.
And it's just the question being asked.
Yeah, it's a very Zen
Um,
approach.
Very much so. It's a
Very
particularly
Zen.
Korean Zen.
Yeah.
And and it's a kind of it's related to great doubt, because we think we know something for what it is, but if we actually open up to other ways of seeing, other ways of investigating, dropping the cognitive framework and just kind of being with experience itself unfolding, things really change. And
But
then,
there can also be a cognitive approach, though, as well. Less the Zen way, but more the sort of early Buddhist way, which is looking at things, say, in terms of dependent origination. So you try to, you see a certain kind of emotion tightness arise, and you might try to investigate the ways that clinging, craving
oh
are
yeah, for
causing that
sure.
kind of, and
Yeah,
that's cognitive. That's an attempt to. I mean, it's
it's cognitive in the context of the teaching, that teach,
right. Mm-hmm.
in terms of how life is experienced,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to cognitive in the, oh yeah, you know, I know why that's, and we may know, that we've just had some idiot on the road, trying to cut us off, and so we're having
Right.
an experience, so, that's a cognitive, as I'm understanding,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of cognition, as opposed to, um, yeah, oh yeah, there's this form, there's this feeling, there's this perception, and then there's all the stories I build around it,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and
It's a different way of looking at it than the stories, and this is one of the kind of profound but difficult sort of lines there is to
for sure.
distinguish between um, investigation, even of a cognitive sort that I'm talking about, that is helpful, that brings you to some kind of an awareness that helps to resolve things and makes freedom easier,
Hmm.
and the kind of cognitive investigation that gets us deeper into stories where we're trying to justify ourselves, and
Right.
who's to blame, and
Yep.
what can we, and who can we get
Yep.
back at, and that
Yeah.
kind of thing, which is getting into the story in a way that's not helpful, in a cognitive way that's not helpful, that just sort of spins the papancha, the kind of, mental proliferation that's not
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
investigation that's useful.
Yeah. Although it is, it's not to say that when the papancha arises or when the stories arise, they themselves can't be
Sure.
seen through the same investigative lens that we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh wow, wow, this arises and this whole story explodes,
Yep.
in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. That to me, that's the kind of surprise or wonderment,
Yeah.
wonder aspect. It's like, this mind is nuts, or whatever. Not
Mm-hmm.
in the, not in the way that we're going nuts. It's just like, this is the mind and how it can work
Monkey
until
mind.
we see it clearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, that this factor is really, uh, uh, well, it's essential, obviously, to our own understanding and to awakening. Hence, it's one of the awakening factors, but um, or factors leading to awakening as we see things more clearly. And that Zen approach of just kind of asking the question without searching for an answer, so to
Mm.
speak. In that asking, in that space of asking, what you're talking about becomes clearer. That is, we can, then see the dependent arising. It's like, oh yeah, um, and the shift in that moment is pretty amazing, actually.
Mm.
Talk about wonderment, because there's something that we let go of, and I know for me, like, as I may have discussed, I can't remember if I brought it into our podcast last week. I don't think so, but I was on, this month, basically 3.5 weeks of retreat. Um, and as you know, I've been carrying a lot, and you only know part of the story, but I've been dealing with a lot of um, major changes, life
Mm,
changes, and um, this was really weighing down on me, and it was having a physical impact as well. And as I was on retreat, and the stories just like get very loud at some point because there's so much silence and so much space for the habitual patterns of the mind to like blare their car horns and stuff. And in letting that happen without fighting it, but simply saying, "Oh yeah, okay, I can let that go, let that go, let that go," and suddenly, all this weight that I was holding, which was having a pretty serious impact on me physically, kind of lifted, as did the pain that was a result of sciatica, but
mm,
still, something happened,
yeah,
and so the pain actually, I was finally able to sleep. I
that's
mean, get
great.
a decent
Yeah.
night's sleep,
Hmm.
and that changed a lot. And of course, even while I was not sleeping, in the throughout the fall, really, that papancha was continual because I was
Hmm.
awake, right? And it was like,
Yeah.
and I was fighting it, or
Hmm.
I wasn't necessarily fighting it. I was trying to fight my way, figure my way out of it, which was just making it worse,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, okay, here it is, and that allowing it to just unfold and do what it does, but also bringing a huge amount of self-compassion into it, into the equation, something shifts.
Right.
And
And
so we really get,
the stress relief. I mean, as much as
oh
anything.
yeah, a big thing. Yeah, of course, that's really what's happening. But or it's a release of that level of dukkha.
Dukkha. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
another
Yep.
way, because that's a direct experience of dukkha, of course,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is a result of causes and conditions for
Hmm.
sure. Um, and personalizing the causes and conditions, right? That's where we kind of get hit, I
Yeah.
suppose,
Hmm.
and so when we're sort of allowing that, when we realize it's not personal, it feels personal, of course, but when we actually start to see that it's not really, then something can change.
Hmm.
Um, and it's so easy to get caught back in it, you know, and but at least for me, once I see myself heading back in that direction, I catch it, and it's like, yeah, and what's here now?
Yeah.
What's really true in this moment? Um, so uh, yeah, it's a real, we can see in those moments that awakening
Yeah.
happening. It's like,
Hmm.
and and then I can feel the energy shift, and then from that, joy arises. So those three factors really kind of can unfold very quickly.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So yeah, and it's kind of joyful curiosity, I suppose.
Well, yeah, it comes from curiosity to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I often think of the difference between um the stories that we think of when we think of papancha, of mental proliferation. One of the, I think, differences between the way that we work with investigation in a Buddhist context and the way we work with investigation, let's say, in a therapeutic or psychological context, is that in the psychological or therapeutic context, you are dealing with the stories usually,
Hmm.
um, but you have this other person there that you're reflecting the stories off of who can help you see through them. Because if we're, I mean, what happens, I think, at least I should say for myself, if I'm trying to see through my stories myself just by looking at them, it's not going to work, because I'm
You
just going to
just
be
get
caught
into
in
more story.
you
Yeah.
just get it. You just get caught in the
Yeah.
same kind of whirlpool, and you
Yeah.
just go around in the same circle again and again and again. And that just doesn't work. If you're working with a therapist, on the other hand, their part of their job, I think, is to help you understand that story in its context and put it into its place and work through it. And if you're with a good therapist, they'll help you do that. And I've been through that, and I think it can
Yeah.
be extremely useful.
Yeah.
Extremely useful. That's a one. I mean, but it is a kind of investigation. It's just it's a different kind of investigation. But it
Oh, yeah,
also
for sure.
can produce its own joy, its own its own seeing, its own understanding through time.
Yeah.
Um, the and I think, and so I think a lot, at least in my experience, a lot of people who come to Buddhist practice have, well, of course, all of us do have our stories, and a lot of times there's a kind of a confusion, as you were mentioning at the beginning, about how we deal with them in a dharmic context. And people do get confused, and they think, oh, I'm sitting here meditating. I should, meditation just means I should sit here and run through my story, and here I have this quiet time, and so that's just a perfect opportunity for me to spend a half an hour running through my stories and trying to figure them all out. And that's not going to
Right.
work. I mean,
And if what's really happening there is not that I'm running through my stories, the stories are running through
running through
me.
themselves.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
turn on this projector. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
for
just,
sure.
it's sort of like you're putting
Right.
yourself in front of your own screen and
Yeah.
just watching the same BS going on again and again and
Mhm.
again, and you're not going to get
Yeah.
out of it that way. So yeah, I mean, and if that's what you're interested in, then I think you ought to be looking for a therapist, and they can be helpful, and they can be
For
extremely, if
sure.
you find the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
one, if you find the one that you can
Yeah.
click with, then they can be extremely helpful.
Yeah.
But from a dharmic context, it's a different kind of story. I mean, it's a different
Yeah.
kind of
And,
investigation, is what I mean to say,
and more there are therapists who are rooted in Buddhist practice anyway.
and can do both.
Certainly
Yeah,
mindfulness. Yeah. And so
yeah.
they see it both sides. And what we haven't necessarily talked about directly here is the karmic nature of invest. How it's all rooted in karma, basically.
Mm,
That is uh, the conditions. They're karmic conditions, and we just uh, we think we have control over when they arise, but we really don't. But there is control over how we respond to them. The karmic seeds that
mm,
arise or come to fruition at any given time, and we just don't know when they're going to come to fruition.
right.
And of course, we can say, "Oh, that karmic seed is because of this," but
That's just
that's
more
not
stories.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more.
And so it's like, okay, this is arising now,
Yeah,
and how do I see it? How is it
yeah.
experienced, and what do I do with it? Um, so yeah, and it is. We've talked about this before. I mean, for those of us who have had really challenging experiences in our life on a relative level, whether it's abuse or some other tragedy that impacted us early on, we don't, the practice is not one to deny any of that or escape from that, but help support the process of psychological transformation as well.
Hmm.
So one does not exclude the other, but also one does not, is not meditation is not always a solution to all of that.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And it can be
Uh,
dangerous if we use it that way. That's we
yeah.
discussed that on a show a while back about
Yeah.
the dangers of um, getting
Bypassing.
expecting, yeah, bypassing, or just sort of um, expecting that since meditation is a solution to all problems, that if I'm not getting a solution in a half an hour of meditation, then I have to go to a 10-day retreat and,
Right.
go into the deep end. And look, I'm not going to say that it's necessarily a problem for everybody, but it certainly for some people can become a serious problem. So
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to be careful with putting dharmic practice in its in its own niche. I mean, it in a sense it's for everybody, but I mean, I think everybody can benefit from it, but also it doesn't solve all the problems. And for some people, it's really important, I think, to have different, to use different methods at different
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned this on a show quite a while back, but I remember years ago when I was still in New York and I was leading a weekly practice at a yoga center that New York Insight had a relationship with. And I remember, because it's called New York Insight, right? So insight meditation. And so I guided the practice, and then somebody was there and said, "So is the insight about helping me solve a problem like in my business?" And I said, "Well, not really. I mean, no, but and there may be some insights that arise around your, uh, or in hindsight, this is what I should have said. I probably didn't then because I didn't have enough experience. But it's like there will be experiences that arise in your meditation practice, or which shine a light on the way you are reacting to something elsewhere. And you might see more clearly that reactivity, or that um, the response to that, whatever it is not skillful and not helpful to solving whatever the problem is. So
Right.
it's not, these, you know, that's why they can go hand in hand. But yeah, the insights have nothing to do with, like, if I just trade this for this, my financial problems will be solved.
Right.
Um,
I mean, there can be worldly benefits,
sure. Yeah.
and so it's I mean, one thing that I think can come up for us with the insights or the investigation is, I mean, at least it's come up for me, is an awareness of certain things that I was doing that were, getting me angry, or not, in states of mind that were not helpful to me and
Hmm.
people around me.
Right.
And to realize that, oh, there's a better way to come at that. Um, and that's the kind of insight that I could gain from this kind of investigation, just
Hmm.
looking at, my own patterns of behavior, and what, noticing that there was a particular pattern of behavior that wasn't useful. Um, and so trying to figure out, okay, so that's not very useful. How can I, is there something I can do to help change that? And oftentimes these patterns don't change very easily, and you find yourself back in it again, but that's a separate problem. But the point is that, sometimes you find these things, and finding them, you can actually can help your work, can help the way you deal with
Sure. Yeah.
your coworkers or your boss or the people that you're bossing around or whatever, I mean, so it's I mean, it can be helpful to your work, but I mean, that's sort of a benefit that's a side benefit, I think, of the practice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, for me also, as I'm thinking about it, another important, uh, it's not really part of investigation, but it's more how we, when we're, oh,
Oh,
shoot,
hey.
are you hearing that?
I'm
Oh my
hearing that.
crap.
That's all right, no worries.
Okay.
No, I'm not hearing
So
it now.
it's my heating system turning on. I can,
I'm sure you need it.
anyway. Well, yeah, but I can 15 minutes more.
That's all right.
Anyway, when the stories arise, as of course they do, an attitude I sometimes will bring to the investigation is one of humor.
Of course. Yeah.
Or
If you can get
some
there.
sort of lightheartedness, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like this again, and what is, can I know this is impermanent? I know this is coming and going, but it still keeps coming, and who's the joker? That's like making this happen.
Yeah.
What? So there is that, and I have to find ways of bringing that into my stand-up comedy routine, but it'll come soon.
Are you still working on your stand-up comedy? Is that?
I just started. I'm only in class 2.
Only in class 2. Okay, so
I
yeah,
have 5 more classes, and I have to, go and do some. I have to write a new 4-minute sketch for the next class, and
wow,
which is interesting, and the kind of. So you need the stories for that.
you do, absolutely.
And then then if we turn the light on those stories and recognize how hilarious they actually are, really finding humor in so many things that we would never normally find humor in, that can be really helpful, especially if one is struggling a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way of, it's kind of interesting, but it's definitely a really skillful way of releasing some of our grip on those stories. It's an ability to sort of look at them from a distance almost, and sort of say, is this really me that's doing this? Is it, where is this coming from?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, humor can be a wonderful, if we can find our way to humor, it can be a wonderful way to work through this, anything really.
Absolutely. So, I should do a little self-plug here.
Sure.
Which isn't unrelated at all. But I have for those of you that are maybe interested in working with me in a more direct way, I have an online class, which is starting the first Thursday in February. It's actually in 3 parts. It's 18 weeks in 3 parts. The overall title is When Shit Hits the Fan.
What could that possibly be referring to?
Broken Heart Dharma. And then I've stolen 3 titles for each section. Sort of. The first section is When Things Fall Apart. So it's Pema Chodron's book, famous book. The second is Picking Up the Pieces, which is a sort of loose reference to Mark Epstein's book. Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart, which the more I think about that, it should be the other way around, falling apart without going to pieces. But and then the last part is a chapter of a book by Saki Santarelli, which is actually from a piece of art called Shattered But Still Whole. So we're, the class is really looking at how we can get through those moments in life when things really appear to be falling apart, both personally, of course, but also, societally. How do we see all of this? Spend a lot of time on dependent origination, both the upward cycle, the downward cycle, and the upward cycle. And so if you're interested in that, just go to my website, or I'll just in the podcast notes, I'll put a link to the class.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but your website, jonaaron.com.
Yeah.
No, jonaaron.net.
So, I think if anybody's really, it'll be intense for sure. Each class has practice. It has talk and discussion, as you know.
Mm-hmm. But a good kind of intensity. Supportive intensity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway,
good
to be with you all. Good to be with you, Doug. And
remember the coffee.
Yes, the coffee. Yeah. Please,
we need coffee.
I have some coffee. Actually, I'm almost out. I have to deal with that. I've got to start exploring the local coffee making roasters here.
Of course, I'm sure they're great ones in Chicago.
Yeah. So, Anyway, diggingthedharma.com.
Yep.
You can buy us the cup
Go to our
or 2 or
website.
3 there. Yeah.
Yep.
And like this website. I like yeah. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe.
Yeah. You
What
can
are the
listen on YouTube. You can watch on YouTube. We record.
other-
We show the
Yes.
videos of these things live as we record them, and you can see them in playback afterwards
Right.
if that's the way you want to. If
Yeah.
that's the way you want.
I mean, not that seeing us necessarily makes a difference in terms of what we're saying, but
No.
you know, we try to be entertaining. So,
No show and tell here,
friends.
but anyway.
Yeah. Keep digging the Dharma, and we'll see you soon.
Great.
Hear
Thanks,
hear
Jon.
from you soon.
Yep.
Be well.